Hey guys, this is the Division 3 Select Playoff Bracket Breakdown. I'm your host, Jace Lejeune, alongside Daryl Felker and Alex Allison of Gridiron Football, and Grant Safshere of Crescent City Sports, Ruger Sports Media. Appreciate Grant for taking some time and breaking down the playoff brackets with us. And I love having Grant his insight and talk about that. Make sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel, by the way, Rigorous Sports Media, and give him a follow as well at Saturate Grant too on X. Now, guys, let's talk about Division Three Select. I'm pretty familiar with this playoff bracket because I call one of these teams games each and every Friday for VSN. So we're going to talk about it, and for my money's worth, as don't look at okay, it's not the 5A schools, right? But I gotta say, it's as tough as any playoff bracket out there in Division Three Select. Let's talk about it. The number one seed, the Dunham Tigers, led by head coach Neil Weiner and some quarterback by the name. Let me put my finger on it. Yeah, that dude, Elijah Haven, right? The number one quarterback in the 2027 class. He is as good as it comes in the country. He is special. And already as a sophomore, he has broken all Dunham's passing records already. So that
No, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah,
that sucks.
yeah, yeah, that's how good he has been for this Dunham program. And the Tigers are trying to get back to the Superdome for the second time in 3 years. They lost to St. Charles Catholic 2 years ago. The run will go through Dunham. The road will go through Dunham for the Dome, but it will be a tough one. They'll play the winner of Parkview Baptist and Lafayette Renaissance. This will be interesting if Parkview Baptist does win that football game because the team that beat Dunham in the regular season and in the playoffs was Parkview Baptist. So that will be interesting revenge if Dunham were able to play Parkview Baptist in the second round. LCA, this is a team that has been really a dynasty the last couple of years. Trev Falk really helped build it. Jawan Johnson was part of that program. Sage Ryan. They had some big time names that have gone through LCA. And that this time they go to Division. They were in Division 2 select. Now they dropped down to Division 3 select. A little bit up and down year. They went through a coaching change early in the season, but they got the talent to make a run. They got a lot of offensive talent as well. Brandon Walker's done a great job of filling in for Juwan Johnson after the career he's had, and they got a lot of weapons out there. But they'll host Beekman Charter. They'll take on Notre Dame of Crowley that has a bye. Louis Cook is you put a Mount Rushmore of Louisiana high school football coaches. Louis Cook's face is on there. He is an absolute legend in Louisiana high school football. Jackson Casanova is a great football player. They got some really good talent at Notre Dame. They're going to be tough as always. That should be an interesting matchup between Notre Dame and LCA in the second round, potentially. Bunky, what a season Bunky is having, led by Kyle Johnson, who's a Houston commit, and also a commit to the Gridiron Football All American Bowl game as well. They're undefeated too. Dylan Compton is a great quarterback as well. They're having a great season, undefeated. A special type of year was expected before the end of the season, and they definitely have that. Now they have a bye. That should be a great second round matchup if it happens, as they'll take on Amy potentially, but they'll take on number 21, Sarah T. Reed first. Bunking Amy in the second round should be an awesome matchup in the second round of the playoffs. Could be a lot of points being scored there. Sauter Charter having a really good season this year. They're a sneaky team at that 13 seed as they'll take on Thomas Jefferson, but they'll take on Jules Sumner, a district champions this year for Coach Courier. Awesome season by the Cowboys. They have a lot of really good talent there. They're big, they're physical, they can run the football. To Jamon Slicing Dyson, like Grant Sastre made famous, nicknamed him. Jules Sumner is a great football team. Grant will talk a little bit more about them later on as he saw them a couple of times this year. Calvary Baptist is actually the defending state champions in this playoff bracket in Division 3 Select, and they return pretty much everybody on an explosive offense. Abram Wardell at quarterback, talk about great running backs. A guy we haven't really talked too much about, surprisingly, this year is James Simon. He is committed to the University of Texas. He is their running back, and shows you how great running backs are in Louisiana. They're as good as any offense when they're going in the state of Louisiana. They'll take on number 14 seed de La Salle. Number 11, Pope John Paul II, having another really good year. We haven't talked much about Pope John Paul in the past, but they've had a special year this season. DJ Jenkins, also a Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game commit, leads that defense. They'll take on Holy Savior Menard in the first round. I know a little bit about this team. I've called their games all year long for VESN. The Knights, led by head coach Travis Bourgeois, as consistent as they've come. Only losses this season were one touchdown loss to Ascension Catholic, and that number one seed, the Dunham Tigers, led by Elijah Haven, 18 to nothing. But they did a really good job of bottling up an explosive Dunham offense. Episcopal's pretty strong defensively, and they're led by running back Reed Chauvin, another Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game commit. Catholic New Iberia's got a really good quarterback in Luke Landry. They are really explosive offensively as well. They have defeated Notre Dame earlier this year, too. Keep an eye on the Panthers of Catholic New Iberia. They have a bye in the first round, and they'll take on the winner of Northlake Christian and St. Louis Catholic. Northlake Christian's got a very underrated running back in the state, and Cameron Casnave. Could be a good matchup there. Number 10 versus number 7 if it happens. And then the Arbonne Woods Charter will take on Merry Park Country Day. And they'll take on the winner of that game will take on Isadora Newman, the Greenies, and led by Nelson Stewart. The Greenies trying to overcome that hump of finally going to that state championship game. They've been to the quarterfinals, they've been to the semifinals with Arch Manning, but this team could potentially be their best team yet. Jake Randall at the running back position is really good. Eli Friend is one of the best senior quarterbacks in the state of Louisiana. They got an LSU commit on the offensive line and Brett Bordelon, and they are big, physical, and tough. And that could be the recipe needed if Newman wants to break that hump and finally get to the state championship. A lot of great teams, guys, in this bracket. A lot of teams that can make runs. You can potentially see maybe 6, 7, maybe even 8 teams really making a run in this bracket. Grant, I'm going to let you go first. What do you think about this bracket? And talk about how hard it is, this bracket. Whoever wins the state championship in this bracket, Grant, really deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard bracket, although I don't think it's as deep as Division 4 Select, which we'll get to pretty soon here. This is still a very good bracket. There's a lot of great teams. There's not really a whole lot of separation between all of them. And really, I mean, like, for example, Notre Dame's the AC. I know that sounds low for their standards, but I think since they've done the power ratings, Notre Dame has never been lower than AC under Coach Louis Cook. I think it's something crazy like that. Like, so that says a lot about the job, he's done, and consistency that he's been able to produce with this Notre Dame football team. I think if you look at this, and really Dunham at number 1, I don't think they're even the clear-cut favorite. They are the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't see them win the winning. They got a tough road ahead. This is probably the toughest of all the number 1 seeds. I think they have the toughest road ahead. I mean, you still got to play Parkview. I know they beat Parkview early in the year and destroyed them. Still Parkview. You still got to factor in. This is still a good program. Then you have to face the winner of Lafayette Christian and Notre Dame. And I'll say this. Lafayette Christian, yes, the record does say 3-6 and 3-7, but 5 of those wins came against 4 or 5A opponents. They're a 2A program playing. They were playing up. So you have to factor that in. Like I said on my show, Jace, sometimes results don't tell the whole story. And I think I butchered that. What did Mickey Loomis said? Results don't.
Yeah, he said man, I had the results.
I don't know.
Yep.
I did too.
Sometimes you gotta look past.
Sometimes you gotta look past the results.
Sometimes you gotta look past the results.
And Lafayette Christian is a great example of that, right? I think, in that game against Notre Dame, I think the winner of this game, these are probably two of the biggest sleepers right here that will play each other right now. But the quarterfinals, I think if there's one team that has an opportunity to upset Dunham, I think the higher chance will have to go to Lafayette Christian, given the athletes they have, and I think they'll give Dunham problems, unlike Notre Dame. Like, I think Notre Dame's a very good team. They're very well disciplined, but I just don't think they have the athletes to compete with a team like Dunham. But we all could be shocked. I mean, this is still a Louis Cook coach football team, so you have to take that into consideration. But of all the teams, I think that will get upset early, Bunky. I think A-Meat's going to be Sarah T. Reed. And A-Meat will play Bunky. That is a team I do not want to play for my first playoff game, especially if I'm taking a bye. I just saw A-Meat last week. A-Meat, I know they're 7-3. I know they lost against Jewel Sumner. That's a very good A-Meat team. Jeremy Franklin can really sling the football. Mm-hmm. They got a lot of great athletes. Their speed. They have not only their speed, but they have size at every single position. They're really big up front. I see A-Meat upsetting Bunky in the second round.
Okay.
I really do. And I think that will set up a quarterfinal matchup between Jewel Sumner and A-Meat. I really do. This is the second year in a row where Jewel Sumner will beat A-Meat in the regular season and then have to play each other in the playoffs, a game which A-Meat did win last year. I believe it was in the second round. But Jewel Sumner is a sleeper right now. I think even though they're number 4 seed, I know they're contender, they're still a sleeper because they're still under the radar. I don't think people realize how good this Jewel Sumner team really is. They beat A-Meat to win their first district title in 20 years. They beat Kentwood. They've beaten Pine. They've beaten some really good teams. The only loss was against Franklinton, who's the number 1 team in Division II non-select. And Jewel Sumner had a 27-13 lead to begin the second half, and then Franklinton came back and won in overtime. It took overtime for Franklinton to beat Jewel Sumner.
Yeah, that has been points too, and they made their extra points that one need overtime.
Exactly. And but I think what would determine if Jewel Sumner does go far is special teams, right? Yeah. Because the only reason why they game into overtime against A-Meat is because that field goal, the extra point got blocked.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if special teams would determine how far Jewel Sumner goes in the playoffs. Going down the list, Calvary Baptist, I believe they will go to the quarterfinals where they'll play Episcopal. They're going to be Episcopal, so they're going to be in the semifinals. And then you go down the list. Catholic New Iberia is a very good team. I believe they'll probably play North Lake Christian, who's also a very good team. So watch out for North Lake Christian as well. Although I do believe Catholic New Iberia will play against Newman in the quarterfinals, and I think it will have a rematch between Newman and Calvary Baptist in the semifinals. This is a tough one for me. Both teams have great talent on both sides. That's gonna be a tough one. I mean, it's kind of going back and forth between Newman. Like if Newman didn't have, like to say Newman had Jewel Sumner, I would put Newman to go to the dome. But however, Calvary Baptist being on the side of the bracket really hurts them. I think I'm gonna have to go with Calvary and kind of have to go with Calvary and go up. I'm gonna have to go with Calvary and A-Meat being the state championship game.
Okay, that A-Meat game is A-Meat pick was very
because I think A-Meat and Jewel Sumner, there's not much separation between the two. Whoever wins that game will go to the state championship. I really do believe that because I think A-Meat has the size and skill to beat Dunham, and on the flip side, let's say Jewel Sumner goes to semifinals to play Dunham. Jewel Sumner has the offense to slow down to keep Dunham off the field. So I think that'll be very important. I know Dunham, I usually say experience matters. However, Dunham is kind of on and off throughout the season. So I think if you catch Dunham at the right time, Dunham is very vulnerable. There's some games where they should have been, they should have been not as close as they should have been for Dunham. And so it depends on which Dunham team we see in the playoffs. Because I think Dunham is not consistent enough if they're not consistent throughout the playoffs, then they're going to be in some deep trouble because if you look at the rest of the teams in this bracket, as you can tell, they're very talented.
Yeah, I'm going to go next. And I think here, guys, so far we agreed on a lot of different stuff. This might be the time where we disagree.
Yeah.
I actually have Dunham making it. I've seen this Dunham team play a couple of times, and there's a misconception, right, that this is a finesse football team for Dunham.
No, they're not. Yeah,
they are not a finesse football team. They can run the football, and they can throw when they need to. They can run with Elijah Haven. If he's a little off, I mean, there's been some games where he's been off, but guess what? The defense picks it up. This defense is really good. And this is a complete Dunham football team. I like this Dunham team, and I've seen them a couple of times this year. I know a lot of people, there's the conceptions about, they're just a finesse team that's going to score a lot of points and move the ball up down the field. Like, they can do that. I think that's why I like Dunham. I think they can win multiple different ways. They can run it. They can run the football. They have to play dirty and ugly if they need to. But if they want to go up tempo and be a little finesse, and they got the number one quarterback in the country. So I like this Dunham football team. I have them actually going to the state championship. I think this is one of the best teams Neil has ever had at Dunham. I really that high on them. Now in the semifinals, I even though Amy that scares me a little bit with Bunky, I think it's now or never for Bunky. This is if you're going to have to make a run, this is the year you're going to have to do it. I know last year you made a great point, Grant, about Amy. Remember, Bunky had a bye last year, and guess who they played next game? It was Episcopal, and they lost to Episcopal with their first playoff game. I think they can learn a little bit from their lessons last year in that fact. I'm going to go with Bunky here to play Dunham in the semifinals, and I have Dunham advancing to the state championship. On the bottom side of the bracket, to be honest with you, the winner of Calvary Newman wins the whole thing. I think they're the best two teams in the bracket.
Yes.
I think the winner of that game will win the state championship game. I like Calvary Baptist. I know we were talking about last year. I picked against them last year, but they're better this year. I know we stopped really talking about them after the Franklin Parish loss earlier this season, but it's kind of like Ruston, right? We forget about We talked about Ruston at the beginning of the year, and then we forget to mention about them after they lose. But they're still that good. The roster's still that good. They're even better than they were last year. I got Calvary Baptist going all the way to the state championship. I'm sorry, Knights fans. I might be getting some heat after this, but Episcopal will go and play Calvary Baptist. They'll take care of business. Pope John Paul. They'll play Calvary Baptist, but I got them losing to. Now, Episcopal's defense can make it interesting and slow that offense down a little bit. Their defense is that good. But I just don't think they have enough offense to keep up with Calvary Baptist. But I'm going to go with Calvary Baptist to go in the state championship game. In the semis, they'll play Newman. I think Newman is one of the best teams. It probably is their best team under Nelson Stewart. And that's saying something because they had Arch Manning at quarterback. But I'm going to go with Calvary Baptist and to play Dunham in the state championship game. And Calvary's the best team in this bracket. I'm going to go with the Cavaliers. So that's my pick here. And we're going to go with Daryl. Daryl, tell me what your thoughts on this bracket are.
I mean, like you guys said, I think this is one of the harder brackets that we've looked at. I mean, of course, they have their favorites, but the favorites aren't all favorites. So, I mean, I think Dunham definitely goes to the quarterfinal. I'm not sure who they play. As Grant said, you can't always look at the record, even though LCA has a tough record. They're a team, and I mean, an 8 and 9 matchup. I always think that's a recipe for either way. It's really a coin flip. So I think whoever shows up that night, that's who will move on. I see them losing to Dunham, and then in the semifinal, I think that Dunham will play either Jules Sumner or Bunky or Amy, and I'm not.
Three different teams.
Well, it's true.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
It will be.
All of the above.
Any narration, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. I mean, I can't personally choose. I've heard really good things about Jules Sumner, but like we said, that experience and just, I mean, that's what I love about football. It's really just who shows up that night and plays the better game. So we can look at these rankings and, take them with a grain of salt because, yeah, any team can show up and just put on that night. So, yeah, I'll roll with Jules Sumner and Dunham in the semis. And I have Dunham going on to the state championship. And as you guys said, I think Calvary Baptist and Newman are going to go to the semis for the bottom half of the bracket, and I'm gonna roll with Calvary Baptist. So I think it'll be Calvary Baptist and Dunham in the state championship, and I'm gonna roll with Dunham. I think Elijah Haven.
Okay.
Hopefully, maybe wishful thinking, but I think he can get it done. Hopefully he can get it done. And yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a really fun bracket to watch though. If you don't have a favorite team, if you don't care who wins, this is going to be
it's a watch.
really fun bracket.
It's fun to watch. Like you're not a high school football fan if you don't like this bracket.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be fun. So we have keeping count. We got 1 for Dunham, 2 for Calvary Baptist. Alex, who you're rolling with?
Okay, so I have a lot to say about this bracket, so I'll just start from the top here. Dunham's the number 1 seed. I got a chance to watch Elijah Haven during the Jamboree where they played U High.
Yep.
That's a really good U High team, and even when the roster is outmatched, like Dunham's roster was against U High, Elijah Haven gives you a chance to win every game you play. He's that good. He's that good right now.
Yep.
Emil Picarella's the 4-star quarterback for U High right now. He's a senior. Elijah Haven's better than him right now as a sophomore. He's that good. And it's really rough for Dunham to get this brutal of a path because we've talked about a lot of these 1 seeds, right? The kind of theme has generally been that the bottom side of the bracket has been more interesting to talk about than the top side. Not the case here. There's some stuff to talk about with the bottom side, but this is a brutal path, and Grant talked about this. Parkview Baptist is not they're not nothing. Yeah, they're the 16 seed. Yeah, Dunham will be favored, but they're not nothing. Is a team that took Dunham out last year, so to get a chance to beat them again is really big. But it's not it's not just a walk in the park. Then they're going to play either LCA or Notre Dame. I watched this LCA team earlier this season, pre-coach change, and they looked pretty good then. And you hear the record 3-7, 3-6, whatever it is, and you're like, well, they're not a serious
contender.
Well, 3-6. Think about it. They're 3-6 and the 9 seed.
Yeah.
That says something. That they're playing some really good football teams and competing with some of these teams. I watched them knock off Karen Crow. Like they're a good, Karen Crow's not a serious contender, but they're also like a 5A school, So they played some huge names and they've competed, they've lost, but they're a really good football team. And Notre Dame with one of those head coaches that is in the history books of Louisiana. That's another school that you just don't count out. Right. We're going to have to play either LCA or Notre Dame. I'll go ahead and take LCA in the Notre Dame game. I do think Dunham will win the game against LCA ultimately because, again, and I like Brilliant Walker a lot. I like that team a lot. Brilliant Walker, Calvin Parker, Trey Parker, Jalen Noel. It's a really good team. I think it'll be a really close game, that LCA Dunham game. But ultimately, Elijah Haven gets the ball at the end of the game. I'll trust him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that next bracket because Grant made some really interesting points about Amite and Bunkie and Jules Sumner. So I have a question, Jace. Was it the Jules Sumner Franklinton game or the Jules Sumner Amite game that went to overtime and you were at the game and you were like, what?
Oh, the one that I was at was Franklinton.
Was Franklinton?
Yeah,
but I know they both went to overtime, and you came out of that Franklinton game because it was the same week that I watched, and we'll talk about these teams later. St. Ed's and Opelousas Catholic, where I'm like, this is the greatest game all season. You're like, no, this was the greatest game all season. Franklinton's the 1 seed.
Yeah.
In Division 2 non-select.
Yep.
Jules Sumner's really good. Is the point. Yep. And so I think they'll win their round 2 matchup, and then you're going to get Bunkie versus Amite. My pick to go to the Dome is Bunkie.
Okay.
I think they'll beat Amite. I think they'll beat Jules Sumner. I think they'll beat Dunham.
Okay.
Because if not now, then when, man?
Yeah.
This team is so good. There's been some rumblings. I was at the Ash Ruston game. Acadiana Senior High and Ruston. 2 of the top 5 to 10 best teams in the entire state of Louisiana. Yeah. And there were people talking about Dylan Compton on that sideline.
Yeah.
That is how far-reaching this season is for this Bunkie team. Yes. It has to be now. They have to win now. I think they'll do it. I think they'll get it done. It's a brutal path for them. Running into Amite off of a bye is so mean. It's just a really tough draw. It's a bad draw. I think they'll get it done. I think they'll get it done against Jules Sumner just because they have to.
Yeah.
That's against the wall. They have to do it. And
That's
I'll take them.
actually the only reason I picked Dunham over
Yeah.
Bunky, because I see Dunham getting that far, and I'm not sure if Bunky gets that far.
I totally understand that. You could tell me, if you had a crystal ball, you could tell me Bunky loses to Amy in the second round in their first game, and you could tell me Bunky's in the dome, and I would believe you the same way. But I'll go ahead and take Bunky to be in the state championship game. In the other bracket, again, like I said, I think it's a little bit less interesting. But I still have nightmares of De La Salle crushing Vanderbilt in the playoffs years ago when I was there. So interesting team, but either way, Calvary Baptist is probably going to be in the semifinals. Sorry to Episcopal and the Fighting Jaces, but
that's a tough road for Episcopal. Like, even if they somehow get past Calvary Baptist, they would most likely have to play Newman. So like that is just really tough.
Those C teams are really good.
Yeah.
I also am going to pick. There's some interesting teams here: Catholic New Iberia, Northern Christian. But I will also predict the Calvary Baptist Newman. What's it called? The semifinal matchup. But I'm going to go a slightly different path here. I'm going to take Newman to win that game.
Okay.
And that gives us a finals matchup of two teams. It's the Desperation Bowl.
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah.
It's the not now, but it's the not now win bowl. It's a Newman team that desperately wants a state championship, and it's a Bunky team that is going to have as good of a chance as ever with Kyle Johnson and Dylan Compton.
Yeah.
I will take Newman to win the state championship. Finally win the state championship over Bunky in a like a story, like a one of the biggest stories games you'll see that state championship weekend if we get. Actually, no matter I think no matter what the game is between the 5 to 7 teams that you think could conceivably make it to the Dome, any of them would produce a really interesting story with just how good a lot of these teams are. So I'll take Newman over Bunky in a really fun, exciting game in that state championship.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I know we have 3 different teams represented. So this is the first time we really disagreed a little bit. So I know we have, I guess, the final tally. We have 1 for Dunham, we have 1 for Newman, and we have 2 for Calvary Baptist, and that makes a lot of sense. And I legitimately see 10 teams can make a run at this. I mean, we talk about the top 8 seeds and LCA and Amy. I mean, those 10 teams I can see making
winning it. Winning it's going to be tough, but the idea of making a run to the semis, making a run to the Dome, to the finals, it's really wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this too, guys, and the reason why I had Calvary over Newman is simply just because I think that Newman really has not been battle tested, and that's very important.
That's why.
Yeah.
When you get to the playoffs, you have to be battle tested. If you don't have those tough games during the season, it's much harder to get in the Dome. In the last few, usually Newman has a tough schedule. But this year they really haven't.
It's
really just not. It's not their fault technically, but although even if St. Charles Catholic was good, they usually play better teams. They usually play. If you look at the schedule past, they usually play some really good teams. This year they really haven't. And maybe it's not their fault, but But St. Charles Catholic, that was pretty much their best win. I mean, it really was. And they played South Black. It was the last game around. But that was their toughest battle since probably week 1.
Yeah.
That's my only issue with Newman. I really like Newman. I think Newman's the favorite, but that's my main concern about Newman.
Yeah.
If you look at who they played, let me actually pull this up. I actually just had it on my phone. Give me 1 second. But Newman, outside of St. Charles Catholic and South Blackman's, they played the Willow School, Riverdale, Emil King Charter, Walter L. Cohen, Sarah T. Reed, and Country Day. A lot of those schools have losing records.
Yeah,
they did not have a tough schedule at all, and that's a larger reason why Dunham was up top. But even Dunham, and let me point this out too. This is why. There's 2 reasons why I don't think Newman it's going to go to the Dome, and this is why. If you look at because they play a really weak district. And no offense to Episcopal, the Episcopal is the toughest opponent in district play, and even they're not. I wouldn't say it. Like they're not the same Episcopal team from last year. I'll say that.
So Episcopal, I would say this: they have a better thing about that team last year. Grant, they're better defensively, but they're not as explosive offensively because of Braden.
Right. But you're going to need explosive offense, especially in this bracket, which is my point. Like, I mean, if they had both, then maybe. But even this Episcopal team, they didn't really beat them. They beat them 18-0. I know a lot of that had to do with rain, but a lot of it had to do with rain,
probably,
which is true. But then if you look at their toughest, but if you look at this outside of their district play, they only beat St. Charles Catholic 20-15, and that's when they're at their injured. That's when they were injured the most. They only beat and now Central Catholic's a really good team, but they beat them 21-18, and they struggled in both those games offensively. But after that, they really weren't really tested, and that's another concern about them. They have been tested, and I'll say this about Amy, and I'll say this about Jules Sumner. I think the winner of that game in the quarterfinals will go to the state championship. And this is what they both have: speed, they both have athleticism, but they both have size. Mm-hmm. Amy, if you look at Amy, they have two receivers that are over 6'2", and even the receivers are 5'8" and 5'9". They're really fast. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line is huge. Mm-hmm. Jalen Harwood, 6'7", 330. Cole Sharker, their senior offensive lineman, 6'3", 310. Vincent Wilson, 6'3", 320. Their two tackles aren't that big, but they're 6 foot, 225, and 5'11", 225. So about kind of what the average 3A team would have, there's an offensive lineman. But the three guys inside are humongous. And then on the defensive side, they're pretty good size too. And they got great size in the linebacker core and DBs as well. But if you look at Jules Sumner, I just actually had the roster. I actually kind of got to go a little bit back. Here we go. So they're big. They have three really big backs. Jeremiah Brooks is the smallest. He's 5'9", 190, which is still pretty big. But then Kendall Brown, 6'2", 215. Jamon Dyson, 6'2", 200. Yep. Their offensive line, has a pretty good size too. But then if you look at this is really important too. Jules Sumner has size on the defensive backfield. All three of their DBs are 6'2", at least 6'2". The tallest is Tyron Robinson, who's 6'3", 180. I think that is going to be a disadvantage. I know Dunham has a good size receivers, but now this is probably the first time where they're going to have to play guys on the outside that are just as big as they are, and I think I think those are two factors that I had to consider when picking the. I had Dunham. I speak really high Dunham, and before this bracket, I was like, okay, Dunham. I'm going to see Dunham in the state championship, but then when I looked at the road, I'm like, oh, this is not an easy road, and they're at a disadvantage.
They got the tougher road than Calvary. So Calvary's got it pretty easy compared to that.
Sorry, Episcopal.
And Dunham hasn't been battle tested in a very long time, and that's also a problem too.
Now, Dunham, if you think about it, they have in ways they have been, because like I said, they haven't played pretty a lot of times, but they found ways to win. And what does that matter in the playoffs? You got to find ways to win, and this is a team that they just find ways to win. Whether it's like struggling defensively when in a shootout, they can win games like that. Or whether it's like, okay, or a passing game is not there to run the ball, we can run the football. I mean, not only with Haven, but back there too. So this is a team that can find ways to win. And Jules Sumner, I love this Jules Sumner team. I mean, that's a team that scares me. But if it goes, I'm worried if it goes to, that third phase of the game. It's that close. We talk about the margin of error a lot of times with these teams. If it comes down to special teams, I'm not feeling good about this Sumner team. So that's the only weakness they really have.
And same thing with Amy too. Amy has special teams issues as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that could be a thing to keep an eye on. When you look at it, really, there's no separation. There's really hardly any separation.
Does Dunham have a kicker either?
Yeah,
not really, but I think, they're more. I would say they're more trustworthy than both Amy and Sumner.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I just remember like you start talking about the Amy and Joel Sumner like kicker situations and special teams problems, and I think back to the Dunham U-High game. It's like, oh, actually, they lost that jamboree to U-High 21-18 because they couldn't kick an extra point. So it might be a one of those really ugly special teams playoff brackets.
And Dunham had this, exactly. And Dunham really doesn't have great special teams either.
Right.
But they're not. I mean, I've been to 2 Joel Sumner games this year where special teams nearly determined the outcome.
It cost them one time, and it almost cost them the other time. Like it hasn't cost Dunham this year. So this is the Division III select playoff bracket. A lot of conversations because, I mean, it can go many different ways.
Yeah.
I can see it going many different ways. But leave your comment. Who do you think is going to come out of Division III select bracket? We got a couple more left to go. You can check out all of our bracket breakdowns on our gridironfootballusa.com and our YouTube channel as well. And this has been our Division III select playoff bracket breakdown here on Ball on the Boot.